Right. We are now reconvened in open session. We do not have any action or closed session items to consider. So we're going to go right into our review items. 6A1, our 2018-19 District Improvement Plan and Campus Improvement Plan Performance Objectives.
Yep. Deanna, you want to do a little presentation on that real quick?
Good evening, President of the Board, members of the Board, and Dr. Dupree. If you recall, in November, we came to the Board and presented a set of District Improvement Plan performance objectives. At that time, the Board provided us some extensive feedback. We took that feedback and we went back to update and revise the Board objectives. And specifically, we really looked at the district performance objectives through the lens of compliance as required by state law in terms of what we should include in our district improvement plan. At the time in November, we came to you with 16 total performance objectives. The district improvement plan performance objectives that have been presented for your consideration this evening, we've pared that down to a total of 8 performance objectives. Again, specifically looking to include performance objectives that meet the compliance measures that are required by the state. Specifically, the 8 performance objectives, 6 of them are associated with Board Goal 1. The first 4, District Performance Objective 1 through 4, address the 4 content areas. District Performance Objective number 5 addresses all students having access to an equitable learning environment. And then District Performance Objective number 6 under Goal 1 addresses campus performance measures. In Goal 2, we have 2 additional district performance objectives, and each one of those, for Goal 2, the first goal, performance objective under Board Goal 2 addresses positive behavior intervention supports, and then the second performance objective under Goal 2 addresses safety and wellness. Those are all of the district performance objectives that we've brought for you today. For Board Goal 3 and 4, the performance objectives previously, addressed Board Goals 3 and 4 are reflected in the superintendent's evaluation instrument. Those represent student achievement measures, but student achievement measures that are not necessarily compliance-based in terms of the data that we would look at. So I'll take any questions specifically about any of the district improvement plan performance objectives.
Thank you, Mrs. Haylard. Haylard, do you have a question?
No, I apologize.
Mrs. James?
Okay, thank you for that presentation, and thank you for reworking all this and working on it over the last month. So, do I understand correctly that all the things that are in here right now are required to be here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and because, and I guess so. Okay, so all the things that are in there are required to be in there because of state statute requires us to be working on certain things or has identified some type of identified needs, and we have to it lists something. Is that accurate?
Well, the state requires us to address all 4 content areas in terms of student achievement. And as I said, the first 4 performance objectives that are associated with Board Goal 1 address the 4 content areas, and the expected results measures for those 4 performance objectives are directly related to STAR.
Okay, and I see you've got the learning environment, which is good, and then the 6th one was about campuses,
Campus performance.
campus performance, okay, and then you've got behavior, climate, and culture, and then safety and wellness. And I'm
Right.
glad there's a safety and wellness. I'm glad there's something on safety and wellness here. I guess what I'm getting at is as we go forward into the community-based accountability system, are we looking at two different ones of these, or or this is going to be our compliance document and our superintendent evaluation is going to be our more community-based accountability, or more moving towards achieving our goals? How do you envision it in the future? Maybe that would feel more comfortable with what we've got right now.
Well, I would envision in the future that we would really work through the entire community-based accountability system and have key questions, and the evidence that we accept would meet would meet some of our compliance measures, but would not be compliance measures in totality.
Okay. All right, well, thanks. I've got probably a few more specific things on this, so maybe I'll email those in. And would that be all right, Dr. Dupree?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Thank you, Mrs. Saavedra. Next item is 6A2, which has been pulled until next week. So we're moving on to 6A3, legislative priorities for the 86th Texas Legislative Session update.
Go ahead.
You have in your packet the two resolutions that the Legislative Committee worked on over the course of a couple of meetings. We identified some primary messages. The first one being choice within education, public dollars for public choice, keeping accountability, but granting district authority. A lot of these themes are themes that we have used in the past in the last few legislative priorities that we've had, but for the 86th legislative session, the Legislative Committee identified wanting to be super focused and hyper focused on school finance and school safety. And so those were the two areas that we discussed. We also talked about having some position statements on some other areas as they were coming forward, but really focusing our advocacy on school finance with school safety. So the two resolutions in your packet speak specifically to those areas. We did consult with some of the other educational groups that are out there, TASB, TASA, some of the other professional organizations, Raise Your Hand Texas, some of the other groups, to make sure that our language was in line. We also looked at what some of the other school districts were doing for their advocacy to make sure that our messaging was similar, and that what we were talking about in Austin would be helpful to the legislatures as they're working through the 86th session.
Thank you, Mrs. Sofer. Mrs. Tossan, you have a question or comment?
Well, I just wanted to comment as the legislative liaison. First of all, thanks to Mrs. Sofer and the whole staff for helping us put this together. I know you guys are working on some materials and with some graphics and some infographics that will make these really simple and easy to understand and for us to explain as we not only advocate and lobby our state representatives and senators and the leaders in Texas, but also as we educate our community. So we tried to be very focused and very simple in our messaging to address school finance, and then of course school safety, which is really geared towards preventative and mental health and wellness, which is what the resolutions are geared towards, and making sure that we retain local control of the dollars that we're given in order to do the things that we believe fit Fort Bend ISD and fit our community and our community's vision, and not just have it dictated to us by the state. So one of the pieces that we've discussed is getting the trustees and administration to help us better engage the community, better engage our parents, and give some information sessions and some meetings where we can empower them to lobby their state reps and state senators, because they see us coming a mile away and sometimes turn around and run the other direction. But if their constituents go and speak to them and are knowledgeable and have all the information they need, then it makes a big difference. And really, at the end of the day, education, as everyone here knows, impacts communities. It impacts property values. It impacts children, and so we want everyone to be armed with the facts. So I'm going to ask my fellow trustees to join me in educating the community this legislative session and getting them to engage. So thank you.
Mr. Rice,
Well done, Mrs. Tasson.
Mrs. James.
Yes, ditto to that, and thank you for, these are great topics, and I really like where we're headed with this, and I think it's capturing the really important issues and things we're facing, so I think that's great. I have a few typos and a little bit of wordsmithing that I'll send in.
Thank you, Mrs. James. I wanted to make a quick comment as well. Thank you for your hard work. Last week when I was in San Marcos for the Texas School Safety Center board meeting, I'm the only board member on that on the board, and they asked, what are we doing and what does it look like? And so this is going to be great. I'll be able to share with them, and that's going to be my plan. School safety, of course, is the priority, and school finance is something that's also important to the Texas School Safety Center. So I plan on using this as just sharing it with them, and I think that we'll probably adopt most all of the same as you have here. So I think it'll be good stuff. So it'll resonate at another layer there level. So thank you. Next item is 6A4, the review proposed approval of the name for Elementary School 51. Mr. Rosenthal, did you want to make any comments about this since you were on the naming committee?
It's a secret. Stop by next week. Why is it on there? It's not supposed to be. Well, anyway, okay, so I'll talk about it now. Well, last time we kind of kept it quiet until we voted on it. That's what I anticipated.
Okay,
so.
well, we can.
Anyway, well, no, you've let the cat out of the bag now. So, anyway, we met a month ago. We had a committee of teachers, parents, administrators, and community members, along with Ms. Sofer and Joe Rodriguez. So we had a long discussion. It took over 2 hours. And it's the same process that we've used over the past several years. This is actually the 10th one that I've participated in, so getting used to these. Anyway, you saw the name. It was named after the young lady in Pakistan, and who kind of stood up for education and was not treated very well. So she's gone on to better things, and the community members thought that would be a very inspiring name for that school. So,
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. We appreciate your hard work. Up next is 6A5, the June 6th. Let me go back here. Excuse me. 6A5A, the June 11th, 2018 called meeting and budget hearing. Actually, there's no need to read through all of these. We can see them all up there, right? Do we have any questions or comments about any of these?
Yes.
Mrs. James?
So I just would like to let the rest of the board know, the ones that were posted, which are June through September, I've actually read through once. Some of them had substantive changes to them, and I've not had a chance to give it a second review. So I invite all of you to join the fun and read the minutes. But I will get to that at least on these before, before the next meeting. I can't say that I can get through October and November.
Thank you, Mrs. James. We appreciate that. It's a lot of work, and it's all of our responsibility, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that. So, up next is 6A, 6B. We're going to pull 6A, 6A until next week. 6A, 6B, Policy FNA, Local, Students' Rights and Responsibilities, Student Expression. Mrs. James, did you want to make a comment, or Ms. Rosenthal?
Right, so this is a policy that the policy committee has reviewed thoroughly. We did a complete rewrite of this, and it's related to the student expression policy we did either last month or the month before. So Mr. Morris helped us with writing it, and I think it does a good job for this topic.
Thank you very much. Once again, we appreciate your hard work on the policy committee. That's a lot of work as well. Next, B1, review of innovative course proposal for 2019-20. Review of new innovative course proposal for 2019-20, excuse me. Did we have any questions or comments about this? Hearing none. Mrs. James, did you have something? Sure. Next, 6C1, review of proposed additional staff positions recommended for the 2018-19 school year. Any questions or comments?
So are any of these, excuse me,
Yeah, go, Ms. James.
are any of these related to EDGE implementation at any of these campuses?
Ms. James, there are quite a few positions that are related, not to the full scale that we currently have at Briargate and that we've seen in the past at Ridgemont, but we do have components of what we recognize as EDGE.
Okay, so could we get a breakdown of what that is, and where? And, I guess there's a plan for where these are going to be used. I didn't know that might be in our materials, but I might have missed it. So, I'll send a question in. Maybe is that the best way?
Yes, and that would be fine because we do have specific campuses and we do have positions that are being directed to those campuses.
Okay, thank you.
If you guys could send that out to all of us, because I had the same question about that, and I just wanted to say thank you for beefing up our staff in the areas where we have need, and we're getting, as we identify more special education students especially, the staff is needed, so thank you for that.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you very much. Moving on to 6C2, Fine Arts Color Guard uniforms, supplies, and related items. Comments or questions? Hearing none, moving on to 6C2B, band uniforms and related items, Dulles High School. Mrs. James?
So in the recommendation paragraph there, the last word is contracts, plural. Is there more than one contract, or is that a typo?
It's just one. I'm sorry, it's a typo.
Thank you very much. We're going to pull 6D1 and all those policies underneath that until next week. So we're moving on to 6D2. Review the proposed approval of 2 lease agreements between Fort Bend ISD and EcoSite 2 LLC for 2 new cellular towers at Kempner High School and Ridgemont Elementary School. Questions or comments? Moving on. 6D3. increase, the review of the purchases exceeding $50,000. 63A, increase in spending authorization for radio equipment, services, and related items. I assume the radio equipment being communication equipment. Is that what we're looking at? Two-way radios, vehicle mounted two-way, is this,
Yes, sir. That's within the campuses and elsewhere.
all right. Any questions or comments? Moving on to 6D3B, Medicaid and student and health-related services billing provider. Moving on.
Excuse me, sir, I do have a quick
Yes,
note
sir.
on that, and it's good news. We had, in the board item for a 4% fee, we've been able to negotiate that down to 3.5%, and given that we're talking about millions in collections, it's a 0.5%'s a big deal for us.
That is
So
a big deal. Do you have any
We'll-
idea what that would?
We'll modify that, we'll modify that, and we'll send out an updated agenda item and calculate that for you.
Okay, thank you very much. 6D3C, technology hardware inventory assessment. All right. 6D3D, LAN network and equipment. Moving on, 6D3E, police uniforms and accessories. All right. Next up is 63F, Campus Security Management System and Equipment, Raptor Technologies LLC. Mrs. James.
Is this where's Long? Oh, there he is. Is this a software update or a database update or both of those? Or I know we use the Raptor system on all of our campuses or buildings.
I don't have it in front of me, but I will get back with you. I do believe it's both hardware and software.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Up next is 6D4, our 2018 bond program. 6D4A, review the proposed professional services contract for a building commissioning agent firm, Engineered Air Balance Company Incorporated, for the rebuild of Meadows Elementary School. Any questions? Next, 6D4B, review proposed architectural and engineering design firms and pool selection for the 2018 bond program.
Yes, sir. On this particular one, we do have a presentation.
All right.
So what we're seeking here is we're seeking board approval of the professional services, architectural and engineering for the 2018 bond. And so design and construction staff began gearing up for the 2018 bond program. And the first thing we did was we worked off of the lessons learned from 2014. So based on those lessons, we went ahead and changed the process on how we would look at architects with bond 2018. So we went ahead and we put out a professional service solicitation, and we defined 6 categories or pools for demonstrated competence for the 28 professional service firms. They were as followed. The first was new elementary school. The second was new middle school. The third was new high school. The fourth were additions and renovations of $5 million or less. And the fifth was additions and renovations of $20 million or more. And then the sixth with net zero experience, because we are looking at a middle school and we're looking at a net zero design in that particular one. So we were wanting to make sure we included that category. And that one actually got combined with the middle school, so we end up with 5. So after the solicitation, we ended up with 31 firms that went ahead and submitted. Of that 31 firms, we went ahead and had them evaluated, and then anyone that scored a 70 or above received a second interview, which was the verbal interview. 26 out of the 31 firms received an interview before a panel. Of the 6 of the 26 firms actually were gone ahead, received projects before. Those were the firms that we brought before the bond passed that we received approval. Those happened, and those firms were Gensler, Kirksey, AutoArc, Fluger, PBK, and OC plus A. So those had already been approved by the board before we went through this. With this packet also, we went ahead and following CV Local, we made sure that we included small business enterprise in this, and 21 architectural firms, out of the 21, 10 of the firms identified at SBE, and that category at this point is 27%. So we're at this point meeting the 25% based on the firms that we are bringing forward. And I'll answer any other questions that you may have on this.
Any questions, Mrs. James?
So on the list here, they've been assigned work. Is that firm, or that's what you're kind of thinking, or how is that? What's happening? Look.
Yes, ma'am. Based on Exhibit A that is in your packet, we've gone ahead and assigned based on the pools that we spoke about. So we've assigned architects are either single or multiple depending on the category. So those are the architects assigned, and that is the estimated not to exceed design fee that we're anticipating. We hope to negotiate at that or below, but that for budgetary purposes, that's where we stand at this point.
Could you clarify for me real quick what net zero is?
Net zero is a building that produces as much energy as it uses. So in the design process, you bring in, solar, wind, all different things to be able to do that.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Haliger, do you have a question?
Just a clarifying question. So I guess I was a little confused because you have rankings. Go back to the document. On page 593, the list from 1 to 19, is that the current ranking? Or is that just an arbitrary list? Huh? Alphabetical.
593 is alphabetical.
Okay, so then inside of the actual exhibits, they're ranked by, I guess, their scoring, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That confused me a little bit. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Haliger. Next item is 6D4C. Review the proposed approval of all master budgets by school for the 2018 bond program.
Thank you. Once again, what we're bringing to you for consideration and possible approval is a complete master budget for bond 2018. This is different than what was done in bond 2014. And once again, from lessons learned from bringing that to the board, you may have noticed that we came to you at times, multiple times, for the same project. And the reason for that was that as we came forward we came at the time that we had brought the architect forth and we had a budget. Then we came back to you when we had the contractor, was bringing them forward for approval, and then we had that budget, and then at that time, we went ahead and scrubbed the budget and we put money into program contingency, because as you recall, we had started 2014 without any program contingency. So then, at times, we had to come back if the need arose that we needed additional money, we had to come back again and ask to bring money back out of program into projects that originally had enough money in there. We would have not had to have come back. So what we're looking at with Bond 2018 is we're looking at literally coming to you with the budgets as were approved by the voters, is what it amounts to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow Carolina to speak to the budget, and then we're going to walk you through a binder that we put on your table, so that you can see how these budgets will operate and how you would go and where you would go to find the numbers and cross-reference everything as we move forward with Bond 2018. Carolina?
Good evening. And so what we're doing this time around is putting together a master budget that approves the baseline or the original budget for each project. And so what this will allow us to do is to move forward with all these different contracts for the architects so that we can start executing the work. We have put together a binder for you, and I want to walk you through it so that you get to understand the budgets and feel comfortable with them. And so if you start by looking at Exhibit 1A, on your binders, Exhibit 1A displays two columns. And so the first column is the assessment budget, and that is the number that PBK put together to help us budget for the bond. The second column we're calling original budget, and that budget is the one we're asking you to approve today. It has a minor variance from the first column, and that is truly just due to bond reallocation. We have reallocated bond support from some projects to others, and so that is truly the variance you will see on the subtotal for new construction and on the construction total columns. Your overall bottom number is the same, 992,580. As we go through Exhibit 1A into the next exhibit, which is Exhibit 1, what it does is it breaks down that budget per school, per location. And so you again see the assessment budget presented by PBK and the variance, which is again that budget reallocation per location. And then the original budget, which is truly what we're asking you to approve today by location. I've highlighted Austin High School because I want to walk you through the budgets with Austin High School. And so Austin High School, we're asking for approval of $19.572 million. As you move to Exhibit 2, Exhibit 2 truly is the master budget. This file will be your baseline for each and every project. So administration building, you will see the different bid packages that are assigned to that one. And so we can tell here that for the admin building, we have bid pack 18, which is ramps and canopies, and that's 47,000 that we have in that budget in that building. And then we have package 19, exterior envelope, and so forth. So each location displays in detail the scope or the bid packages that touch that location. We put in some small tabs. If you go to that first small tab, Austin High School, that's where you will see the budget for Austin High School. Austin High School gets touched by 14 bid packages, and so you will see the detail on each bid package that touches Austin High School. And then you'll see the total amount of Austin High School, which is $19.572 million. After the board approves this master budget, we will consider this our baseline to move forward on execution for the bond. And so each location truly has the breakdown on the bid packages that touch that school. We added, we added another exhibit, which is Exhibit 3. The Exhibit 3 groups the work by bid package. So if you're interested in fine arts, for example, when you're looking at Austin High School, it shows you that we carry $12.8 million in fine arts. So when you go to Exhibit 3 and you follow your small tab on top, it will take you to Austin High School. Fine arts, 12.8. So the way we have developed the reports this time around makes it easier to follow the numbers. I know we had some challenges in 2014. It was a bit difficult sometimes to follow the numbers on scope from one report to the other one. For 2014, we came to the board for approval many times with bid packages, and the bid packet included 5 schools. But the monthly report really talked about individual schools, so it was difficult to follow from what the board approved to the monthly report. We have addressed that issue here. So here you will see each school with their total budget and the individual bid packages that touch that school. And then the second report we gave you here on Exhibit 3 groups them by bid package, and you will easily follow fine arts from Austin High School. It's easily followed. And so we hope that these changes truly help us clarify those numbers for you and make it easier to understand the budgets. I wanted to take an opportunity to show you, if you keep going down, there's another tab that says Sample 2018 Monthly Reports. And then you have a small tab that says Number 1. That one gives you an example of what that 2014 monthly report was. It was these 2 pages where you would see the schedule first, you would then see the picture and some scope, and then on that second page you would see the financials with the different categories for A&E fees and contingencies and so forth. If you take your book and compare these categories from 2014 down to the next page, which is the sample for the 2018 bond report, you will see that we've maintained the exact same categories. So the same categories you're used to seeing on 14 for the A&E fees, design contingency, other professional services, we've maintained the same categories on the 2018 monthly report. And so we are looking for consistencies on how we report projects throughout the bond. The monthly reports will display exactly the same original budget that you would be approving in your master budget. So once you approve the master budget, this column in the master budget that says original budget would be the same column on the original budget in the monthly report. So you will be able to follow those numbers. That will be our baseline, and that's what we start with as our baseline for our budgets moving forward. Besides, the categories have maintained. We're going across 2014 to 2018 with the same categories you're used to seeing, so we're maintaining that consistency. You will notice there's a blank page that says state schedule under development. We're still working on the schedule, but we intend to provide a bit more detail on the schedule. So Austin High School gets touched 14 times by 14 different packages. And so your schedule will show the 14 different bid packs that touch that school. So you'll easily follow the timeline per school. I know I'm giving you a lot, but now on tab 3 on your book, it's a sample of our dashboard. And so our intent here is to improve really the way we've operated on 2014. And so we intend to develop a dashboard which will be open to the community for them to be able to see the progress on the bond and the dates and execution. This sample we're presenting here is from a different school district. It's currently in operation, and we are working on ours to look something similar similar to this. To the board, we intend to give the dashboard to easy access, and on top of that, we're going to continue to provide the monthly report that you're used to receiving on a monthly basis. I want to highlight the fact that even though you'll approve a master budget, we will still continue to come to the board for approval on every contract over $50,000. You will get a chance to see the budgets, again, when we come for those approvals. We will continue to follow policy, and so the approvals really are not going away. We're just looking for efficiencies. And one big efficiency is truly to present at once the master budget for the entire program so we can start moving forward towards its execution. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Mrs. Fazzetti. Mrs. Tossan, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Burdine. So first of all, I very much appreciate this because it does allow us to follow the dollars and match everything. And this is much clearer than what we were getting during the last bond. So I want to thank you guys for your work on this and for giving us something that we can refer back to instead of getting those bid packages that were kind of confusing and hard to follow the numbers. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second, my question is, I love the dashboard. I think the community's gonna like the dashboard and being able to see it. So my question is about timing. When do we think we will have it ready? And when do we think we can get it published?
We are targeting February of next year to go live with the dashboard and the monthly report.
2019.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in the next couple of months. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mrs. Heliger? You good? Mrs. James?
Okay, so thank you. That was a good presentation. I love binders, so I really appreciated this. I'm getting a little sarcastic because I have too many binders, but I'm not as confident as Mrs. Tossan at saying that I can follow how you're getting from one section to the next on this. So, but I will look at it and send you any questions I have. I guess what I maybe want to go back to the very beginning, because you talked about the original budgets, and I'm not clear. So you said those original budgets, the original budgets come straight from the bond. And then there's a variance, and then we have a new budget. When we're approving these budgets, are we approving budgets for schools, or are we approving budgets for bid packages?
You're approving budgets per school.
Okay, so we're approving an amount per school, and that amount is set for that school. So then with CV Local, you have authority to move money around within that school or within projects within that school? Or how does CV Local apply to this approval?
So you will be approving budgets by school. The school has different scopes of work that touch them, but we will manage that scope of work within the approved budget. By CV Local, we are allowed to transfer within that same school and report to the board on a monthly basis on those budget adjustments, as long as we're still within the approved project budget for that school.
Okay, so the money allocated to each individual school stays the same from what was approved in the bond, except for these variances, which I'll ask you about in a minute. But when we approve this, we're approving an amount for a school, and then you may choose to put more into roofing and less into HVAC or vice versa, but all those funds will stay at that school. Is that?
So yes, we are establishing the different categories or the different bid packs, and we're showing you the baseline. So when you see the master budget on exhibit 2, you're seeing the amounts allocated for each bid pack that touches that school. And so that's our original budget. If we move monies within those bid packs, it will be reported to the board under the budget adjustments.
But you're not gonna take, okay, so I'm trying to understand how you can move money, what authority you have to move money, that's what I'm trying to understand. So you have money to move between fine arts project at Austin High School and a fine arts project at Travis High School, or you have money to move between fine arts project at Austin High School and a roof at Austin High School?
Within the same project, so within the same school. you are approving the budget per school. So you will approve 12.5 million at Austin High School. And so we will stay within the 12.5 million within Austin. We may move $10,000 from roof at Austin High School to the flooring at Austin High School. It stays within Austin High School, and that's what gets reported under budget adjustment.
Okay, I think I might need to study up a little bit and maybe follow up, because I'm not still not understanding, and I'm asking the same question over and over. So let me ask you one other thing. On the budget list, when you've got a variance, you said that already that's a variance that you've reallocated projects from the 2018 bond money into another project, or you've explained the variance thing. Where is that coming from, and what is that?
So we started with PBK's assessment budget. That is what we put together to come up with an amount to when the board called in for the bond election. We established that as PBK's assessment budget.
Right.
So as we set up our database and as we start loading the projects, we realized there's some certain rounding, or in this case, it was the bond support reallocation. By the IRS regulations, we are to allocate bond support only to projects that are going to be capitalized. And so what we do is we take the bond support out from those projects that won't be capitalized and distribute it through those that will be capitalized, and that is your variance.
All right, and I think that relates to, because there was a sentence in the item that I thought, okay, what does that mean? So that explains what that is. Okay, well, I'm not totally there yet, but I'll study. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes, I really appreciate the way you guys have organized this, because it makes a lot more sense. And I think, a lot of the confusion for the last bond, Grail, was I think that we'd see these bid packages and it had touched all these different schools, and so it was really hard to keep track of we had to keep track of bid packages instead of schools, which you can actually touch and we know kind of where they are and all that. So this seems a lot more straightforward. So in the end, so when you're getting close to finishing up a school and you have money left over, that will go into general contingency?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is that how you get stuff transferred from one school to the other, or one project to the other?
Yes, sir. So that does not change. Once we're complete and we've completed a project, we can truly say we've done everything, we would then go ahead and put that into program contingency, and then the board would have to go ahead and allow us to use it somewhere else. So this time around, we're starting with $5 million in program contingency. As we finish a project, that would go in and build upon that.
Hopefully.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I know, it makes a lot more sense to me. I think this is good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rice? Mrs. Haliger, I'm sorry. Do you have a question?
Okay, yeah, I agree. Like Ms. Townsend and Mr. Rosenthal, I really appreciate, as a PM myself, I really appreciate the way you're setting the reporting up, and it's going to be a lot easier for us to review. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right number. So moving forward, as we look at progress, my original budget is going to be, I'm going to use the original budget, not the assessment budget, correct?
That is correct.
So so moving forward, I'm going to see original budget for my forecast, actuals, and then any variances from forecast to plan, which is your original budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So every month, they're going to provide us an assessment of what they've spent at the actuals, and then they're going to be forecasting what they're, if there's any changes or whatever, what they're going to be spending moving forward. And they're going to show us any variances from the original plan to what they're going to be forecasting to complete the work. Okay, so if the plan changes, in a sense, the forecast changes, they'll let us know that and make those adjustments within the variance. Right? Correct.
That is correct.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. So that way we can monitor that, and then anything else that we don't need, that's not planned, that variance at the end of the project will then go into contingency. will go into the contingency bucket.
So-
And then we can use it to do other things with. I just want to make sure that if within the bid package, though, we find that something is, I think maybe this is what you were asking earlier, but this is the question I had in my mind, is that as you're looking at, let's say, the 14 bid packages and things need to change, we're doing some type of change request, or, well, maybe not in your world, you're doing a change request for that, but how do you, if you find out that, hey, bid package A, we really need more than what bid package B is for that same school, how do we move money around to support the actual costs, the new actual cost of that particular project?
So transfers between schools need to come to the board, because we would be changing the original budget of a certain school.
Yeah, so my question is within school, using her example of roof and arts or fine arts within the same school, let's say one is bid package 1 is the arts, and then big package 2 is the roof, and then we find out that, hey, we need more money to support the roof, or more, I like supporting fine arts better than the roof, actually. So if we need more money to support fine arts, and we have some extra money, we only needed 10 shingles for the roof, and we can put some more money into fine arts. How do we go about doing that?
If it's within the same school, we're allowed to move money. And so let me try to go back to try to clarify this. In Bond 2014, we focused on touching the school only once. It was part of the focus, we're going to touch the school one time, and so we would hire one general contractor to do everything, from the playground to the roof to the flooring. And so that was the approach in 2014. But we realized as we executed that there were things that really didn't need to wait 3 or 4 years. And for example, a playground. One school waited 3 or 4 years because that's when the general contractor will get to that school, and we could have installed a playground within months. And so what we did this time around, the approach is by product line. And so we grouped all the playgrounds in the district and said, we're going to give it to one contractor, and this contractor is going to go install 25 playgrounds. They don't have to wait 3 years. We can execute the playgrounds and keep moving forward. And so there were flooring, and so we grouped the flooring, and we said we're going to give it to one contractor, and this contractor is going to rotate through the district, and it's going to change the flooring in the different schools that they need to. So we're going to end up touching a school many times, but we're going to execute the work faster. Drinking fountains. We don't have to wait 3 years to give the schools drinking fountains. We give it to a job contractor, and they go around, and within 2 months, we have all the drinking fountains installed. And so that's the difference in the approach. So when you look at your Austin High School this time around, and you see all these bid packs, it's because we're providing you the detail on all the different packages we created for that school in an effort to execute the work faster.
Yeah, so I particularly understand that. I just want to make sure that, so you're talking about a horizontal change, if you got 15 playgrounds or 25,000 water fountains, that's one thing, but within this particular school, if you need more money in that same school for something, in my world I call it reallocation of funds. So are you telling me that you can reallocate funds up to $50,000?
Within that same school.
Within that same school. Is that what you're saying? Okay, all right.
And if we're still within that same budget of the board-approved original budget of $12.5 million, we can reallocate and report on a monthly basis to the board the reason why it was reallocated and the amount, from which line to which line.
So the only thing is, and without getting into all the detail around it, is just to make sure that when we do the reallocation that we are really transparent about it, because I don't want people to think, oh, you know what, they promised us X, Y, and Z, and we took money from X, Y, and Z to give to something else. And I just hear that as a comment, a possible comment that could come up in the future when it comes to reallocating. They skimmed us on X, Y, and Z, and then we were expecting 25 water fountains, and now we only have 2 water fountains that all 3,000 kids have to, share. Something like that. I'm exaggerating, but the kinds of things can happen, especially when you're doing reallocations.
So the money stays within the school. Anything that transfers in or out of the school has to go to the board for approval.
That's not what I said, though. Okay, I'll talk to you offline. I get the outside of the school. I'm talking about within the school and making sure that.
We can reallocate and report the reallocation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Helliger. Mr. Rice? Or,
Good job, Mrs. Eddy. After we approve it on Thursday, time to go to work.
Yes, sir.
I want to clarify what I think the question to be that I think Mrs. James is asking, because I've just glanced at policy CV local, and I don't think we have to answer it necessarily right now, but I think I just want to make sure I understand. It refers to project budgets. I think we need to define what is the project budget. Is it the school? Are we considering the school budget, the project budget? If we're determining that's the case, then that is that we're trying to make sure we're aligned with CV local. So, I mean, how would you define the project budget?
The project budget is the amount allocated per school. And so when you go back to your first exhibit, Exhibit 1, that is what on the original budget line column is what we're asking the board to approve. And that allocates an exact amount per school. That will be considered our project budget.
Okay,
Jim.
thank you. So, okay, and so that's different than what we did before, which I think is what you've been trying to explain. But I think something Ms. Helliger said, she talked about variance. The variance that's here, that's variance from the PBK assessment.
And so she says she's not going to use that anymore. That's
Correct.
going to go away. So any variance in the future is going to be from the original plan and any new estimates that come up.
Right, so the assessment budget's going away, the variance numbers we are accepting, we're taking the original budgets. They're now gonna, the original budgets, even though they're not original, are gonna be that's the column.
It's the new revised plan.
It's the new revised plan. Okay.
And so in an effort to keep this transparent and clean, we're calling it the original budget, and once the board approves, it will become our baseline budget moving forward.
thank you very much, Mrs. Fazzetti. We appreciate your information. And so you had mentioned in February is when we have the dashboard, which is going to be available to us and the public
That is correct.
via our website.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. We're moving on. 6D, 4D, review the proposed approval of the job order contracting pool to be utilized by the district for 5 identified 2018 bond program projects and non-bond related projects to be identified. You had mentioned this just a few minutes ago, but can you just speak quickly to the benefit of these job order contracting?
And so what we see as a benefit for selecting JOC is the fact that we can execute the work faster. We have identified several bid packages within the bond that can be executed without the need for an architect. So we can go out, hire the JOC, and begin the work within the next 30 to 60 days.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rosenthal, do you have a comment or question?
Yes, so this makes more sense now, okay, after the previous explanation and review. So with the job order contracts, it doesn't necessarily mean one particular vendor. It could still be a pool of vendors. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Ms. Helliger, do you have a question? All right, thank you. Moving on, 6D4E, review the proposed professional services agreement with Combs Consulting Group for the execution of technology consulting services associated with the 2018 bond program. All right. Next are our action items, which we do not have any this evening. So we will now have our audience response to agenda items. And it looks like we have first, Mr. Lee McMorris. Am I saying that correctly? Could you please stand up here to the microphone? You will have 3 minutes. Mr. Rosenthal is going to keep the time, and he'll give you a 30-second warning.